in, I'd like to just do a couple introductions up here on the stage. My wife, Lisa, right? My youngest daughter, Miranda Richmond, and her significant other, Brandon McCoy. Our oldest, Megan, was not able to be here with us tonight, but that is my immediate family, and I've got a lot of family here with us tonight, a lot of good friends, so I appreciate everybody for coming. And taking some time out of your busy schedules and busy lives to hear me lay out my vision tonight for our great state's future and how I believe we can make the lives of all Iowans become even better as the top priority for our Governor Ray administration. My friends, I've been preparing for this moment my entire adult life of public service. A week ago today, I left my over 29-year career in public safety and resigned from the Iowa Department of Public Safety, where I served the last decade as a manager of our state's 911 emergency communication centers with offices in Camp Dodge, Cedar Falls, and Cedar Rapids, and formerly in Atlantic, Iowa. Prior to that, I was a proud 911 dispatcher for the Iowa State Patrol and previously for the Boone County Sheriff's Office in the beginning of my career. I'm a 1988 graduate of Boone High School, 1990 graduate of EMAC, and a 1992 graduate of Iowa State University. I successfully completed the Certified Public Manager program at Drake in December of 2012. I'm currently a Boone City Council member at large for the past 13 and a half years, and also serving as Mayor Pro Tem, and currently in the middle of my fourth four-year term, first taking office in 2004. I have years of experience in serving on various city, county, state, and federal positions, committees, boards, and commissions. I decided to leave state employment because of two reasons. One, it would be nearly impossible to run for governor and manage the enormous responsibilities that I had. And two, it isn't easy speaking freely about the problems that our state government has without separating yourself from state employment. And believe me, folks, Iowa government has a lot of problems. I only hope that the people of Iowa will see that I care enough about their future to give up my career, with no certainty that I'll win, and try and use my experience to make our state a greater place for all Iowans. We live in one of the most volatile political periods in well over a couple generations. And I will tell you, it does sadden me. As Iowans, we're accustomed to and we're proud of our ability to be civil and respectful of one another. Yet we cannot deny that there is a great deal of bitterness and anger among many people, even in the heartland of our country. My goal as the next governor of this state is to do what I can to change the political climate, to seek bipartisanship, and an open dialogue of issues facing society, and serve the people in a manner that, even if you disagree with me on something, I can earn your trust by showing that I will listen and explain the reasons behind the decisions I will make. In short, I will encourage everyone to have a voice, and I'll ensure that I will keep an open mind and listen to you. Governor Ray will support Iowans regardless of their race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. I flat out denounce anyone or any group that espouses bigotry or hatred toward others in our state. I will not tolerate it whatsoever. I hope those who support me and those who may not can at least come to a consensus that this is one area we can agree 100%. Many issues facing us are not Republican versus Democrat or liberal versus conservative. They are issues that simply need a common sense approach by a level-headed leader who's willing to extend their hand across the aisle to make decisions in the best interest of Iowans, and not for the sake of political ideologies or favors. People must come before politics. And when political decisions are made without respect to the decency of humanity, then political leaders will simply fail to serve their constituents, for which they took an oath to uphold. I have not always agreed with being lockstep with my own party on every issue, and clearly there are platforms of other political philosophies that I simply do not accept. But on our two-party system, both Republican and Democrats have had their hand in many of the problems facing Iowa, including our state budget, prioritizing spending in which both sides have failed miserably, and the people of Iowa and taxpayers have gotten the short end of the stick. We're going to fix that in the Ray administration and right this ship to move full steam ahead on calmer waters. Government's essential function is to provide for defense, and at the state level, that's public safety, and promote the general welfare. And at the state level, that's human services, health, and education. These three areas are hurting, and they will be a top priority of the Ray administration. During the last legislative session, our legislature and former governor managed to pass sweeping changes to Iowa Chapter Code 20, which greatly reduced the negotiating authority of public employee unions in Iowa. There were issues with public employee union contracts at the state, in my opinion. They could have worked with the unions to get through some of those changes. As an example, raises for underperforming employees should not be automatic, but based on acceptable performance. And even some diehard Democrats I've talked to at some union gatherings that I've been to already have said they didn't agree with that type of stuff either. We didn't need to gut the entire system. This was a political goal to diminish the truth that a clear majority of public employees are hardworking and deserving public servants. They raise their families, they pay their taxes, they support our economy just like everybody else. I believe the changes to Chapter 20 were unnecessary and an undeserved slap in the face to public employees who have been a target of some Republicans and the former governor for many years. As a former manager in state government, I've seen that this change has done what it has done to morale of many great, responsible, and committed public employees, and it's just plain wrong. This so-called fix to Chapter 20 will not provide an appreciable solution to our budget problems, and in fact, it's just smoke and mirrors politics. Public employees are not the problem. They are not a drain on taxpayers, no matter what anyone claims. So I just want the public employees in Iowa to understand tonight that a future Governor Ray knows the demanding work public employees do to make our city, county, and state services work better for our citizens. Public employees will not have an adversary in a Governor Ray, and they will always have my full support. Had the Chapter 20 legislation come to my desk as governor, I would have vetoed it and sent it back to the legislature with a note in the margin of the bill stating that we can do better than that, than putting legislative and executive branch budgetary failures on the backs of hardworking public employees. My entire life has been spent around law enforcement. I grew up around it, worked in it for over 4 decades. My maternal grandfather was a longtime Iowa sheriff, the late John Stark of Story County. My mother, Pauline Rentschler, was a long-time dispatcher and supervisor at ISU Department of Public Safety and Communications. And my uncle Terry Stark, who's with us tonight, like his father, was a long-time Nevada police officer and Story County deputy sheriff and sergeant before retiring over a decade ago. We were a family that was dedicated to public service and to the preservation of the bonds of integrity and ethics in performing that service. My long service in public safety illustrates the importance this noble career can have on the people that serve in it and how well the public can rely on a strong law enforcement system in Iowa and around the nation. The men and women of law enforcement, fire service, EMS, and other uniformed services, including our military, will know from day one that they have a governor that stands squarely beside them and will support them 100%, not just in the tough times, but all the time. I will serve to ensure they have the best training and equipment they need to serve Iowans. I will begin my first budget proposal to ensure we hire additional state troopers and criminal investigative agents for adequate staffing on our state highways and interstates, and enough agents to assist local jurisdictions with increasingly complex crimes that are rising in Iowa. I spent an entire career making sure our sworn officers had the necessary backup that they needed, and I will continue doing that as their governor. I am the only candidate in this race for governor among all political parties that has the experience, the knowledge, the connections within this state to meet the goal of making our law enforcement and other public safety services across the spectrum, from the 911 dispatch centers right into the field, the best that they can be with all the resources they need to protect Iowans. No one can deliver on this more than the Governor Ray can, and I will, period. With hiring more troopers, we can again utilize those state officers that have the training and expertise in such areas as human trafficking and drug interdiction to take the team approach to combating these very common yet extremely dangerous crimes on our interstates and state highways throughout Iowa. I will be a law and order state, and I will be a law and order governor, providing unprecedented support to Iowa law enforcement and public safety initiatives wherever I can help them, unlike any other Iowa governor before. I don't consider myself a politician because it's never been in my nature to promise what I cannot deliver. However, there are many issues of importance to our state that I'd like to share my views with you this evening. First is our budget. I don't know what the world is going on here, but it's $7 billion and we're still having shortfalls. The solution cannot be using more reserves, and for me, raising taxes cannot be an immediate solution either because we're taxed enough the way it is. As a city council member, there's a term that I call the leaky toilet syndrome. I've experienced many people over the years who will complain about how high their water bill was over a previous month. And they'll initially complain and say that we billed them wrong or we raised the rates and didn't tell them. But when they're asked if they have a leak in the house, most will say none that we're aware of. And after they have a plumber check, they figure out they had a leaky toilet. And I suspect that something like that's happening in our state budget. It isn't employees, it's spending and other appropriations of tax money that endlessly drip, 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 and it simply adds up over time. In my first 100 days as governor, there will be an executive order requesting the Department of Management and the Department of Administrative Services to perform a full top-to-bottom review of the state budget and account for spending habits among state agencies and departments and find the root problem. I will also order a full review of all top-level management in these agencies to determine if they're adequate or top-heavy, and if their frontline positions are adequate in serving the needs of Iowans. I strongly suspect in my experience there is a combination of issues going on here that we can readily address and put a clamp on any drips that are adding up to a large puddle. I also want to make sure we have enough frontline workers that perform the work to help Iowans, from law enforcement to human services personnel, ensuring our children of placement are safe and being cared for in a proper environment. Management positions that can't provide a full explanation of their duties to help the mission of their department or agency may need to be reassigned commensurate to the pay they received and vacated once they leave the position. Unfortunately, we have a lot of management positions that supervise very few, if any, employees at all. If their positions require such little responsibility, then maybe they need to have that position revert to a previous position where we can save taxpayer funds and help put the help where it's truly needed on the front lines, serving Iowans. As someone who is pro-business and a capitalist, I recognize that large companies in Iowa can provide good jobs with decent living wages. It also takes a skilled and dedicated workforce to meet those demands behind those kinds of jobs. My concern is the large amount of tax money we outlay to corporate giants with incentives to bring them to Iowa. And if they stay, do these incentives recoup themselves for taxpayers? Or if the company leaves, do they recoup themselves after they leave, when the incentives dry up? Are we getting the money paid back to Iowa taxpayers? Does the money equal the benefit of the jobs? Some deals include hiring no more people than the average Iowa family has show up at Thanksgiving. I know we spend tens of millions of dollars and even more of some of these tax incentives for large corporations. Think how far we'd be if we took even half of those millions and provided tax incentives or forgivable loans to current small business owners or small business startups. We'd recoup that investment tenfold to the benefit of our economy and supporting businesses that hire a clear majority of Iowa employees. By being wise with our tax dollars, investments can produce tangible results. We shouldn't be investing millions in ventures with no foreseeable understanding of the future that company has in our state, because they are so large that their investment means little to them if they decide that way. Tax dollars invested in education to ensure our kids are being prepared for a life of quality skilled jobs appear to be a more logical path to follow. As governor, I want to fully fund K-12 education at the local level and allow local control by school districts whose teachers know what is best for our school children's curriculum. I strongly support STEM initiatives, but also would like to see Iowa schools bring more concentration to the classroom for farming trades and sciences such as agronomy and agribusiness studies. We want to remain a strong agricultural state, and we can ensure that success by getting students interested in this trade from an early age. They will be the people in agriculture careers in the future that will help our farm economy grow, remain strong and competitive. So I'm for adding an A in this STEM and call it STEAM, and announcing full steam ahead for supporting education and our educators making Iowa the best place for children to live and prepare for adulthood through superb studies. We also can't dismiss that the arts and other humanities studies and that some students are not geared towards science and math but excel in other areas. We must ensure that we have the support for them there as well. I support open enrollment and the rights of parents to homeschool through coordination with their local school district. I also